Hi, good morning, everybody. I hope you're doing fine today. This is my next video. I'm going to take my next video today. And in this paper, I'm going to talk about historiography. I had spoken about historiography briefly earlier on in yesterday's video and yesterday's video. But in this video, I'm planning to take it to a greater level of depth. We had five published papers on historiography already. These were published over years, starting from around 2015, from the year 2015 till around the year 2023. Okay, and the first paper was called Historiography by Objectives. In this paper, we had reviewed various approaches to historiography. We began right from the time of the Greeks. We spoke about the historiographical methods proposed and postulated by Isocrates, Epaphras, Demophilus, Polybius, Herodotus, Diodorus, Homer, Hesiod, etc. We also spoke about the Roman historiography, such as his type of historiography proposed by Fabius Pictor, Cato the Censor, Livy, Cornelius Tacitus, Antipater, etc. Okay, this was the case in Greece, and China also had its own tradition of historiography. However, although India produced brilliant works of philosophy like the Upanishads, we did not have any great tradition of historiography. This is rather unfortunate, and this was pointed out by the great British scholar F.E. Pargeter when he wrote the book The Ancient Indian Historical Tradition in the year 1927. Okay. Later we had Islamic historiography also. Stalwarts in Islamic historiography were Ibn Khaldun, Baqidi, Al Madaini, etc. We also had church historiography by Saint Augustine and Salvian. We also had Enlightenment historiography by Bolingbroke, Bentham, Macaulay, Voltaire, Montesquieu, and Mill, John Stuart Mill. Some of these scholars were Western centric and they were also anti India to an extreme degree. Few of them, not all of them. And we also then had the Marxist historiography. Marxist historiography is based on um, the dialectical approaches which were adopted by Hegel. Hegel proposed the dialectical method. According to the dialectical method, thesis plus antithesis leads us to the truth. You need to bring together points of view, two extremely contradictory points of view, and thereby arrive at the truth. Karl Marx also used the dialectical approaches. However, he gave it a twist and gave it a material twist and a material orientation. Marxists also opposed nationalist historiography, which they equated to bourgeoisie nationalism. And materialistic historiography was advocated by Marxists, and cultural factors were ignored. Marxist historiography was also teleological and deterministic in that it posited an origin in history at the start of the revolution of the proletariat. Okay, it focused on class struggle, working class struggle, subaltern studies. Okay, however, it proposed a highly reductionist view and it takes into account material factors alone. They also resort to erroneous compartmentalization of periods in history. They ignore the importance of human thought, human education, etc. It is also Eurocentric. However, Karl Marx made some feeble and half-hearted attempt to extend his ideas to suit a global context. He came up with a concept known as Asiatic modes of production. Interdisciplinary approaches were also ignored by Marxist historians. Marxist historians also ignored the role that history can play in not only awakening, creating human consciousness, that is about the past. Marxist historians generally do not like the idea of winnowing the past for glory. However, scientific use of history can bring about a transformational change in society. This is something that we had written about a couple of years ago. And we now have new trends in historiography such as theometrics, which deals with economic history, comparative history, cultural history, history of art, history of literature, and much more recently, history of science and technology, which includes history. This is tied with history of ancient civilizations. We have the Chalcolithic Age, Copper Age, Bronze Age, etc. And we had proposed in our historiography by objectives, we had proposed identification of stakeholders and stakeholder-driven approach to historiography. We had identified a standard list of 39 objectives and additional scholar-defined objectives. We had also proposed the research layer, presentation layer, etc., and different presentation layers for students, academicians, localized presentation layers for specialists, etc. And we had also written another paper where we had proposed the core principles of 21st century history, such as rigor, precision, exactitude, objectivity, etc. These are unfortunately ignored by Marxist historians and, of course, Hindutva historians, who are agenda driven. And we had also proposed a book paper on anthropological historiography, where historiography needs to be linked with prehistory and proto-history. Okay, we had also written a paper on qualified historiography. This came a technique and reported like we have research on post-Harappan India in the Gangetic Plains in the absence of reliable narratives. However, this must offer some benefit to science, and pseudoscience and mythical views of history should not be promoted at any cost. They had also written a paper on investigative historiography. This can be used for research. This is research oriented and it is collated and correlated with the scientific method. For example, we have a study of the Dead Sea Scrolls, Birmingham manuscript of the Quran, Sana manuscript, etc. of the Quran. And this type of approach can be done. For example, now we have some thought-provoking quotes. I will just take you through these. Okay, and according to Pranab Mukherjee, Shantinikan in West Bengal, Pranab Mukherjee had this to say. Historians must guard against the saffronization and crimsonization of history and avoid trying to find answers to bitter controversies through non-objective approaches. Okay, at the time he had not yet become the president of India; he was still the defense minister. But this was delivered during the inauguration of the 66th Indian Congress history in Benghazi, West Bengal in 2006. I still remember famous it of very interesting incident here. One Mrs. Chatterjee, a Bengali lady who was left oriented at the time. At the time, many intellectuals in that region, Bengal region, were left oriented. She had said, "Is it a crime to be a communist?" Because Pranab Mukherjee had said that we need to take very strict action against those who distort history, including religious fundamentalist communists, etc. This is what she had to say. It's not a crime to be a communist, but at the same time, historians owe it to society, owe a mountain of debt and gratitude to society to work towards the goals of society. This is extremely important. Okay, and similarly, we had Romila Thapar also said, barring few exceptions, early Indian history generally taught in many schools, as it was half a century ago. Out of date textbooks, sometimes actually incorrect, written in a dull and broad fashion, are used to smother students with boring information, chunks of which they are made to learn by heart and reproduce in examination. Therefore, even according to Romila Thapar, whose herself is utterly obsolete and outdated, some of her ideas, especially on Vedic history, on the history of the Ganges Plains are outdated, hopelessly antiquated. But even she said that history is outdated. So we need a change, especially in study of ancient India. The historical models that we use to study ancient India are pretty much outdated. Of course, Hindutva groups want to pitch in and bring up give their own interpretations and versions, but ideology-driven approaches, whether Hindutva, Marxist, Dravidian, Dalit nationalist, Eurocentric, Indocentric, etc., must be eschewed and thrown out of the door. Okay, and Edwin Bryant, for example, has this to say. I'm reading the entire quote as it is. He said this in his book on the Aryan debate. This debate was raging a couple of decades ago. Now I believe it has been satisfactorily solved with the adoption of new, up-to-date historical models. Casting of the legacies of colonialism opened up the exciting possibilities for the study of Indian proper history, provided the constraints of the colonial period are not replaced by an equally constraining insistence on a different ideologically driven reading of the historical evidence, whether Western elitist, secular Marxists, or Hindu nationalists. Unless attitude to this issue change from all sides, I foresee the perpetuation of two widening divides as the indigenous position becomes more vociferous, one between Western indulgence and more persistent voices from the Hindu diaspora, and other much more serious confrontation with the leftist and rightist academics in the subcontinent itself. Most unfortunately, if this trend continues, the result will be that the entire field of study will suffer due to a loss of communication between differing opinions and points of view, the lifeblood of a progressive field of study. Okay, Edwin Bryant is a professor at the Rutgers University in the USA. Okay, he is not ideologically driven or motivated. He is quite broad-minded, and he doesn't share the views of old Marxist historians and colonialism. For example, if you see Gregory Posel, Ritzel, there are others, they're all obsolete, but he's not obsolete. He generally is up to date compared to those people. We have already tried to tell you the drawbacks of Marxist historiography. There are many more exactly. I have dealt with them in my previous publications. They are only one-sided, okay, and even Ramachandra Guha, somewhere in northern Karnataka, he had made a speech around the year 2016. He said Hindutva groups may be silly, limited, flawed, one-sided, but allowing Hindutva groups to take over will lead to much more serious consequences. That's what he had to say. And this type of one-sided approach promoted by Marxist geography will breed incompetence. Okay, and and it will bring science and scientific activity and endeavor a bad name. It will bring scholars themselves a bad name by impacting their self-respect and dignity. And they are also Marxist historians don't try to understand Indian culture and Indian ethos. Okay, they actually rubbish it and discount its importance because whatever when you want to bring about cultural change, you need to understand the local culture, local traditions, etc. They discount it heavily and don't take into account. This has been one of the problems with Marxist historians, not only Marxist historians, historians in I mean Marxist scholars in general. Because, for example, when we had Indochina, or some people clandestinely, surreptitiously supported the cause of China, which was embarrassing to most Indian leaders at that time. Okay, actually, now what I have done is I had these 39 objectives of core 21st century historiography. Okay, what I have also done is I have prepared it will be too boring for me to reiterate and repeat everything here, and the compatibility of for Marxist historians and mainstream historical method with these 39 objectives. And similarly, I have also proposed the 30 40 core objectives of 21st century historiography. The performance of Marxist historians and mainstream historical scholars as against these core objectives of 21st century historiography is very, very, very poor indeed. And in the third paper which I had published, I had also spoken about the core objectives of anthropological historiography, where the researcher must try to establish an interrelationship between history, proto-history, and prehistory. I had also defined the concepts of proto-history and prehistory in those papers. So, as you can see, as you'll be able to find out yourself, the performance of mainstream historiography historians against these 21st century objectives of historiography is extremely pathetic and lousy. It is very poor, okay, and they don't even match them by a mile, okay. They are behind by several orders of magnitude. So I would again request you humbly to go through my five papers, and if you have any feedback, you are more than welcome to go through me. And the very reason why I'm making this video is to explain to you that the science of historically is fundamentally flawed and hopelessly antiquated. We need more and more researchers to take up research not only on history, on the field of historiography itself, which will provide a foundation, a basis, and a fulcrum upon which historical studies can be built. Again, thank you very much for giving me a patient hearing. Bye.